Tēnā tātou, nau mai haere mai ki tō tātou hui, tuatahi mā tīmata I te karakia. Tuia I runga, tuia I raro, tuia I roto, tuia I waho, tuia te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, haumi e, hui e, tai.
Ai e.
O nau mai haere mai ki tō tātou hui, ko te taki o ngā wāhine katoa I te kōrero nei, ka mahi ahau ki te āwhina ki tō tātou hui, ki te āwhina I te whai kōrero nei, ki te āwhina ko te taki o ngā wāhine katoa. He uri ahau no Ngāti Porou no Te Arawa hoki, Koriana tōki wingua, he roia ahau ki Kāhui Legal. Ko te mea tuatahi, ko te tikanga I te pō nei, so before we dive in, first of all, welcome to the annual Women's Debate for 2022. The kaupapa for tonight's debate is focusing on wai, so water, wāhine, and me Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So before we jump into the debate, I'd just like to start off by addressing the health and safety for tonight's event. So we want this debate to be a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone, regardless of age, race, religion, sexual preference, gender, social or economic class or ability. So we will not tolerate any forms of harassment of the participants in any form, particularly through the Q&A portion of the evening. All communications and questions should be positive, constructive and courteous, and I'm sure we all won't have a problem with that. So it would just be much appreciated if we could just all keep this in mind and just try to have a really cool and informative evening with these awesome wāhine in tōrangapū politics. So with that, I'd just like to give a huge mihi to our panellists. So we have Alan Blake, who's in the centre here, and also Tori Whānau, who are both running for mayor in the Wellington City. We also have Ura Wilson Pokuati and Tapu Elia, who are running for mayor in Porirua as well. So it's really awesome to have such a high calibre of wāhine panellists tonight. So, and thank you all actually for taking the time to come to tonight's event and join us. We really appreciate you being here. And a big mihi to our host organisations for creating this space for us to be able to hear from these candidates who are standing for mayor in Wellington and in Porirua. So that's the Wellington Branch of the National Council of Women and the Zonta Club of Wellington and graduate Women Wellington. Ka pai. Okay, so we're now going to move into the sort of debate part of tonight. And tonight we'll be hearing, as I said before, from these lovely wāhine on issues relating to wai, wāhine and Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So to start off, we're just going to kind of keep it chill and we'll give our panellists just a couple minutes to introduce themselves, followed by 3 minutes to respond to a question about each of the topics, so wai, wāhine and Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Okay. So I think we're going to draw the speaking order now. Is that right, Alicia?
I forgot to write everyone's names on a piece of paper.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Modern and wow. Oh, I guess it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Making history right in front of your eyes.
This is how it's done.
Or else I can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, second.
Hey.
First. Got one.
Okay. So we've got Alan as 1, Tori 2, and who's Toru? 3. Ura. And Tapu. Ka pai. Okay. So we've got Alan first, Tori second, Ura third, and Tapu fourth. and this will be the speaking order for the remainder of the evening. There will also be an opportunity at the end for you guys to submit your questions to the panel as well. Just for our folks on Zoom, you can use the Zoom Q&A feature to submit your questions, and those in the room will write your questions down and submit them to me, and I'll read them out to our panelists. Also, just before we get started, to the panel, we don't mind a bit of back and forth tonight, as long as it's respectful and constructive, of course, so don't be afraid to have a kōrero with your hoa, your friend. And we'll finish up at around 7:30 tonight. Ka pai?
Kia ora.
Okay, so let's crack into it. So I'm just going to invite the panelists in our speaking order to just give themselves a 2-minute introduction, and we've got a lovely bell ringer, Claire, down the end, who's going to ring the bell at 1 minute 30, so give you guys 30 seconds before your time's up.
I have plenty of paper and pens if you need something to write your questions down.
Ka pai. Okay, so ka pai. Okay, so if you need paper or some pens, there's some around the room. Okay, so we'll just get started with our intros. So kei a koe, Alan.
I'll sit down again for Zoom. Nā mihi nui pōneke, nā mihi wāhine toa, ko tēnei taku mihi ki ngā mana whenua o te rohi nei, ka mihi hoki o ki ngā tohu o te rohi nei, no reira tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Ellen Blake. I would like your vote number 1 for Wellington Mayor. I'm an independent candidate, and I would just like to share a couple of things about my vision for Wellington. So our wonderful city, Wellington, is facing challenges, both global and local, with demands on people, resources and the environment. We need to act. We need to heal from COVID-19, meet our climate action targets, keep our natural ecosystems thriving, economy rolling, and ensure everyone has a place to call home. So there's quite a lot to do. But the good news is that Wellington has strengths. We've got really high public transport use and a great walking culture. We've got impressive parks and beaches. We've got some just across the road over here, and popular urban spaces and really well-established services and activities. So I want to use the strengths that we've got and to take action with a high value but not high cost projects, which I think should be achievable by the council over the next 3 years. So I've got three focus areas. One of them is better sustainable climate friendly transport, public transport in particular and walking. I think we need to develop more and varied green spaces. We don't have enough in the inner city. And I think we need to really focus on providing quality, affordable, accessible housing with great infrastructure. And so together I want to find local solutions to address our big climate and global issues, and for a thriving, future-proofed Wellington, a better city for all of us. So that's Ellen Blake. Thank you very much.
Kia ora. Hei a koe.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Pakapoi toku iwi, he uri tēnei no Taranaki ko Tori whānau toku ingoa. I'm running for Wellington Mayor because I think it is time for our wahine Māori to lead this city. It is time. But before I get started into my vision, I just want to talk about a couple of people that made me the staunch Wellingtonian that I am today, and that's my grandparents. So Annette and Norongo Tūpātia Kahu Kurunui, they helped raise me when I grew up in Porirua. And they would take us into the city for like the good times. The Wellington City was always seen as this mecca that we would go for a treat. My nan, she was a cleaner at Victoria University, so we'd catch the train and she'd do her cleaning. Little did we know that 20 years later I would be here studying film, media and politics. My kororongo, he was a theatre actor. So he'd take us to Circa Theatre, Festival of Arts, would go get a feed afterwards at the Green Parrot. So we very much had, that real love for the local hospitality and arts scene. He then became an activist, so he would protest on the steps of Parliament for our iwi, and he'd drag me along as well. So he never really said it, but I knew that he always wanted me to get into politics. Of course, I graduated with a degree in media and film, and also did some politics papers as well. And my main experience is I was Chief of Staff of the Green Party for 6 years, although I was with them for about 7. And my role was to facilitate a coalition between the Labour Party, Green Party and New Zealand First. And that wasn't easy. I think you can imagine what that was like. But I also maintained relationships with the National Party and ACT Party, so a very diverse group of politicians and staff. I also led our political party behind the scenes, so that was 10 MPs and about 40 staff through 2 very difficult elections and 2 very difficult but successful government negotiations, which led to government formation. I also have over a decade of corporate experience, so working in the financial industry, the film industry, and of course Parliament. My top priorities have always been about more warm, dry homes, social housing as well, and they need to be accessible. A world-class public transport system, mental health support for our most vulnerable, and alcohol harm reduction as well. Fixing the pipes, it's not the sexiest policy, but it needs to be done. I'm very passionate about the arts, so I have a policy there. But of course, creating a climate resilient city where nature is protected, and a commitment to work with mana whenua. I'm just going to rush forward now, so please, it's time for a change. Vote Tory whānau for Mayor this year. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Tory. Hei a koe ura.
Ko tērā koutou katoa ka hui hui mai I tēnei ahihai ki tēnei whare o Victoria. Ko tōku ingoa ko ura Wilson Pohoati. Tōku ngā matua ko Mau Rawa ko Marion Pohoati. On the te tua o tōku pāpā he Ngāti Akatauira, Ngāti Rongomatāne, Ngāti Pārua Rangi, e ngā pūtoro, e Ngāti Maniopoto, e Ngāti Toa. Te tua o tōku mama, he māngarangaro, no te kuhi airene, e Scotland. Ko whānau au konei, I Poneke, ki ko. Ko haere tōku ngā metua, I au, I tēnei wā, ki Parihaka. I te rima mataiti, o te tau, noho mātou ki ko, I Parihaka. At the age of 5, after living in Parihaka for the first 5 years of my life, we returned to Wellington where I attended Newtown Primary School. The first language that I ever heard was Māori, but it was a unique experience. Because we lived on the marae at Parihaka, it was Te Reo Māori, or Taranaki dialect, and it was Cook Island Māori. So I experienced the wairua, the mana, the ihi, of what it meant to know of what happened on that day in November. I also experienced as well too as a child the aroha, the manaakitanga and the whanaungatanga, and what it meant to be a kōtiro amongst a whānau of people who valued all tamariki as being equal. So when we talk about the Treaty of Waitangi and talk about why I'm here today, it's about time. I stand and I sit, but always I speak whenever I'm anywhere, because my tūranga waiwai is not one that's on any particular whenua at this particular time. It's on a place actually that is spiritual. It's a place where my wairua is actually planted there. It's where my parents come from. It's where I've actually visited. It's where I am today. So what I give you today is a bit of my background. And as our panelist, Tori, has mentioned, my mother cleaned the buildings here in the post office over here in Porirua. They were people who came to this country hoping for the land of milk and honey. Along with that, when they came here to this country, they came with expectations for an education for their children. I was one of those who became a role model. For many years, I've worked as a role model in my community. I've worked with government, with ministers, on national portability of superannuation for those in the Cook Islands here in New Zealand. I've met with ministers in the past to negotiate policies that would actually better the lifestyle of those people the better their economic and social livelihoods in Porirua and in New Zealand. I've worked for the royal family of Brunei, and I've worked also too with people in high-level positions in putting across policy. I've come from a background, I attended Cannons Creek Primary School, Porirua College, Wellington Teachers College, graduated from Victoria University and a Masters of Education. I've come from a place where I know what the reality is, and some of the priorities for me, which is really essential, is to have a look actually at warm, dry housing, look at lowering the living wages, look at multi-generational trauma, which comes from being Indigenous within a world that is starting to recognise and honour the Treaty of Waitangi here in Aotearoa. I also am passionate about ensuring that we have safer waters. Te awa o Porirua, ko au te awa, ko te awa o Porirua, ko au. So very much wai is the essential ingredient to what I am all about. Without it, as women, and we know from the very beginning when Hine came forth and birth arrived to us all today, that water was such an important part of our very existence spirituality. So I'm on about ensuring that we enhance mana whenua, to ensure that we have co-governance. And when we talk about co-governance, it's not just the consultation and representation I'm talking about ensuring that there's transparency for those in the community. So my time is up, and I say thank you very much.
Tēnā koe ura.
Kia ora.
Kei a koe tapu.
Yes, kia ora everyone. My name is Tapu Elia. I am 38 years old, and I was born on the island of Waitangi in the Cook Islands, just next door. My superpower is being a young, strong, independent Polynesian woman, and I believe that a mayor needs someone with people skills and the business acumen to manifest solutions and to drive for effective change. If you can't lead people, how will they follow you? I can hold my own in any room that I go into because I know who I am and I know where I come from. Being Polynesian is also my superpower. I pride myself in being a successful business owner, and I'm a single mum of 2 boys, aged 12 and 4. And at the grassroots, I also run a charitable trust based in Cannons Creek, Porirua East, which is something I know that not many mayors are able to do, is run a business and also run a charitable trust, and also mother 2 boys. And I'm multitasking as we speak, and I absolutely love the life that I have now, but I know as I stand as mayor, I can impact more lives of women and more tamariki. I know everything is possible through God's love, and I know everything that I have is because of Him. I'm so grateful for the amazing supportive family that I have, and I wouldn't be here today without them. I'm standing as the first Polynesian mayor of Porirua, and I can promise a show me, don't tell me leadership. And what that means is less talk and more action, and that's what we need right now when we're looking at a housing crisis. What else are we looking at? Housing crisis, our water's dirty, our pipes are breaking, everything's just falling apart, our economy's broken, and we need someone that's strong and can take action to fix these things. And my focus areas are housing, the environment and youth. My values are kotahitanga, unity, kaitiakitanga, guardianship, and whānau ngātanga, kinship. And those are all values that I hold close to my heart. And these values are an extension of the treaty principles, partnership, protection and participation, which I'll use as the basis of all my policies going forward if I'm elected as mayor. I've got transferable skills working in government, as a PSA union delegate, a secretary in my church, and serving on school board of trustees and also chair of my charitable trust. So I want to utilise my skills to serve my community and create a better future for all families. Mai take.
Me mihi atu ki a tātou, e tautoko ana ki te kōrero, ki te āwhina i tō tātou whānau. Ai, me mihi atu. Alright, so with that, I think we are moving on to the questions for each topic. So just to remind everyone, that's why, Wāhine and Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And for this one, we're going to keep the same speaking order, and you'll have 3 minutes 3 minutes each to respond to each topic, so why, wahine, and te tiriti or Waitangi, and Claire will ring the bell with 30 seconds to go. Kei te pai? Ka pai. Okay, so ko pātai tuatahi, why? What are your plans to address issues relating to water in Wellington or Porirua rānei? So, kei a koe, Alan.
Kia ora. So I was really excited to come and talk about some different topics in some of the meetings that we've met. So I really appreciate your great organising and organising this really well and very early as well. So for why water, I started from, I'm really involved in some bush restoration groups and some other groups that mean that we think about water quite a lot. Are we going to get enough for a start? And then where does it go and how do we manage it? So when I start thinking about water, I thought that as far as I understand the concept of kaitiakitanga, that was a really good place to start. So we need to look after the land so that any of the water that falls on us goes into the sea, into our waterways in a really good way. So some of the water legislation talks about te mana o te wai. So I really, from what I understand of what that means, I really thought that was a great way of looking at how we manage water, that we are working with natural systems, not trying to control and confine things. So I thought that was a great starting point. So for me, stormwater is a real key issue. So one of my priorities is that we use green space to manage stormwater better, so water-sensitive urban design kind of principles, and that we need some more big green spaces in the inner city because we're really short of them. And so these can be used for stormwater slowing and wetland kind of process issues as well. So we start with the land and looking after the land. And so, yeah, anyway, keeping going. Wellington Water can and does need to improve its performance. We're doing pretty good in drinking water. We need to upgrade our infrastructure. We've had all those kind of earthquake issues, but we need to make sure that we have a more resilient state. We were in Kurori last night and they have really big issues with their water system, and for some reason it doesn't seem to be a priority. So I think making sure some of those places really get priority improvements in infrastructure is important. And obviously the sewage pipes still need to continually be upgraded. We've just invested apparently in that sewage treatment sludge plant, which is going to make a big difference to how we manage some of the water as well. So I really support some of those issues. So looking after the land, particularly looking after stormwater, I think that's a key issue for Wellington. The drinking water and the sewage is kind of in process. So in some ways, I'm really on the, I think there's 30 seconds, I'm on the fence about three waters. I think it's, I can go into a lot more detail on that, but I think that it's a really major, significant change for Wellington, and whether we need it or not, I don't know that we really do, because Wellington Water is only 5 or 6 years old, and I think we can probably develop from that a lot further with co-governance in Wellington Water if we want to go that way. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Tēnā koe, Alan. Kei a koe, Tori.
Kia ora koutou. So water is life. It is the most important thing for our environment, and it's the way that it's received, held and distributed. So that is probably the first priority before we actually address any of our other issues within Wellington. So for me, so the big ways to address that is fixing our water infrastructure, and I understand the council has allocated over $2 billion in the long-term plan for that, which is great. It is a significant cost, but it does have to be done. When it comes to Three Waters, I am supportive of it. So because of that big cost, I do think passing Three Waters through and being able to utilise that bit of funding that government has allocated plus other resource is beneficial for Wellington City, because it also means we can focus on other environmental issues and housing issues as well. We also know there will be a lot of involvement there with mana whenua, which is absolutely crucial when it comes to our water and land. However, if Three Waters doesn't get passed, we can find an alternative, and it is about not only that infrastructure funding that has been allocated, but I do worry we'll need more has to be done, as long as we have, like Alan has said, a co-governance model with that alternative. So when it comes to also, stormwater, drinking water and so forth as well, so other parts that I'm supportive of, so we've obviously got to fix the leaks within our pipes. We've got to bring our wastewater network up to standard. We should invest more in water sensitive design to manage our stormwater and making Wellington more resilient to floods and heavy rain, which we know is coming as a result of climate change. We need to ensure that transport and water infrastructure improvements are done together to minimise the disruptions across our city, and we can do that through things like the Urban Development Act, which I'm also supportive of. And something I want to trial is a plumbing warrant of fitness for private properties to spot problems in pipes a lot sooner. The reality is a lot of these issues have been ignored by previous councils, and there's been underinvestment for decades. No more. We need to move forward. We need to prioritise funding for our water and for our pipes. Thank you.
Kei a koe ura.
Malone, malolele, assalamu alaikum, and greetings to you all again. I've mentioned about co-governance and the importance of mana whenua and about transparency. I'm on about people, partnerships and progress. Therefore, we're talking about bringing a new lens onto policy and annual planning in the Porirua area. This means actually ensuring that there's an increased footprint of Pacifica and the diverse cultures that are actually living in Porirua. Water is essential for us as human beings, but it's essential for Porirua. We're such a diverse community that we have people in Cannons Creek who are having dirty pipes, and they're having a lot of backflow coming up the toilets, and the water actually is not that clean from some of the pipes. And then we have other parts of the community who are actually having a lot of stormwater overflow going to Oriental Bay Harbour and to Te Tiriti as well too. So it came up at a meeting the other night that the council had not agreed on a review to ensure that the overflow that was going into Oriental Bay Harbour had actually been looked at again and stopped. So I suggest in looking at ways to be kaitiaki, we get kaitiaki on the council, we go for a change, we get it right by getting the voices of the diverse groups in there, we ensure that it's transparent and the selection of people onto that board, and we ensure also too that we have the partnership through looking, as we're celebrating this year for the first time Matariki, we go for looking at a new way of looking at some of our problems. It's about time we change and have a Māori mayor in Wellington and a Māori one or a Pacifica one in those communities which are diverse. Also too, I think climate change is number one for all of us, just as COVID is. It's one of the two major things that are impacting upon our existence as human beings. If we could do it, as 5 million Jacinda said, come together for ensuring whole water for the whole country, we can do it for this. I think also too, related to our way, is the essential aspect of ensuring that we do have for our tamariki in our schools, we have fresh water. We have lunches in some of the schools in Porirua, but these children are having to go and get water out of taps which are having terrible rust in them. Why can't we have free bottles of water in our schools? I will ensure as mayor that this is a priority. Kia ora. Ka pai.
Tēnā koe, and kei a koe tapu.
Kia ora koutou. So in regards to water, it is part of my DNA. My great ancestor was a chief navigator in the island of Hawaii, and he was able to navigate from Hawaii through to the Cook Islands, and his descendants landed upon Aotearoa today. So why is a big part of our family and our ancestry, sorry. And because of that, kaitiakitanga is a big thing. We want to protect our water. I want to revoke the potable water in Porirua. I think it's a 60-year-old problem and we don't need it anymore. We've got up-to-date technology and toothpaste that's got massive amounts of fluoride already in it, so we don't need it in our water system. I don't believe it should be ingested, and it should be topical, it should be used on your teeth and not be inside our bodies. And protecting our bodies, because I've heard potable water can affect our IQ, lower our IQ, and then it can actually affect our unborn children. So I encourage you all to look into that, and that's why I want to revoke the potable water and Porirua City water. In regards to kaitiakitanga in Porirua City, there is a 20-year consent to pollute our beautiful Titahi Bay. And I want to revoke that as well if I'm elected as Porirua City Mayor. It's time for someone to do something and make bold actions, and I want to be that person to do that. To fix the water quality problems we're having is I want to get sensors installed. Sensors will monitor the quality, will monitor the temperature, it'll monitor everything we need to know, and we want it to be the results to be available online, so anybody from anywhere in the world can log in and see exactly what's happening in the water and what the quality is like. And with myself, I'm going for swimming with my children. I want to make sure that the water's clean enough for us to swim in. And if my other family, my brothers, are gathering kaimoana, I want to make sure they're eating clean seafood. And I want this to be available all across Aotearoa, but of course Porirua City first if I'm elected mayor. What else? I want to also place a high tax on companies that are bottling our water here in Aotearoa and shipping it over to places like China. So I think they should be taxed for taking our free water, really. And in regards to, I want to get more training pathways for our youth to learn how to fix pipes and lay them into the grounds ourselves, to fix our water quality issue. And I also want to get more training pathways for our youth, job seekers and local residents to learn how to do planting so we can prevent sediment getting into our waterways and polluting our waterways. So those are just a few things that I have off the top of my head, and if I'm elected mayor, I will be happy to bring up more policies to help keep our water clean. Hey, thank you.
Tēnā tātou. Before we move on to Wāhine, I actually have a question from the audience that is related to why, so I thought we'd just slot it in here now. But what that means is that you only have 60 seconds to answer this pātai, so got to be quick. So I'll just read out the pātai. So on my street in Highbury, blocked drains cause a big problem. So how would you propose to manage urban drainage / stormwater better? So I think we will hurry back to Alan to start us off.
Okay. Good question. Obviously in Wellington we've had a lot of slips and heavy rain and quite a lot of issues lately, so there are just heaps of water running across footpaths and things all over the place. So I think the council's trying to work through their plan of going around and fixing all of those, but some of that is a much more long-term thing. So I think we need to manage stormwater in a different way, which was I was trying to say before, was use our green spaces and our trees and planting a lot better to try and manage some of that. But we definitely need to also improve the way that we manage slopes, hill slopes and things, so that we can identify places that are going to fall down or that are going to cause different sorts of water issues, and maybe it's the pipes. So we need to, I think as Tori was saying, we need to make sure that we know what the condition of the pipes are. I'm not sure that we do have a really good handle on that at the moment. So it's just that continual improvement to try and address all of the issues that we know are here now and are coming to worse. So yeah, hope that kind of answers that.
Kia ora. Tori.
Basically, I have to toe-talk everything that Ellen has said. So yes, all of that. Anything I'd add is this is why I think water infrastructure and pipes is really crucial, because 25% of the water that ends up in this, leading to these slips, comes from our pipes. So first and foremost, let's just get that started. Hugely supportive of water-sensitive design and green spaces, so things like swales and tree plantings to help manage that water distribution and direct it to the sea. And of course, at a much higher level, it's just really accelerating our action plan on climate change. So, we're in a crisis, needs to be fixed. This is why we're having these problems. So prioritising our climate policies a lot more, especially when it comes to emissions reduction.
Kei a koe ura.
Oh, kia ora ana. Look, where I'm living at the moment, the pipes are old. They haven't even been changed for almost over half a century, and we need a review. We need to actually get in there immediately and get this done. If I'm elected to, well, when I'm mayor, I would ensure that we have a look at the whole review process to ensure that they're not every 20 years, that they're every 3, 5, whatever, but get another way of doing our planning and our reviewing, because we are missing the boat there. We need to change. The other also too is, which is really important, we were 40 years ago a small city. We are now 60,000 plus, one of the fastest growing cities in the whole of the lower North Island, if not the North Island divorce of Auckland, of course. So that's the direction I would take. Nō reira, kia ora rā.
And finally, ka whiua te rako kia tapu.
Kia ora koutou. So in regards to storm water, I agree with Tori there. So we need to address climate change, and I believe we can address climate change through creating training pathways for our youth, for our job seekers and local residents that are interested in climate change. And with the training pathways, we're going to teach, they should be teaching them how to plant trees, and the pipe works and how it leaves from our houses all the way down to storage tanks. I think that's a good part to educate our community and what actually happens, and what you flush down the toilet actually affects the entire framework of our stormwater. I also think we should be investing in community groups that are already out there doing the mahi, but they're not recognised enough by the council, and I believe, because I'm already associated with a lot of the other community groups, I know how hard they work, and they're not recognised for the work that they do, and I'd love to see more investment in the community groups already doing the mahi, and also keeping the money local by investing in the training pathways for our youth, and keeping the money local, keeping money in local families' pockets. Make it up. Thank you.
Apai koutou. All right, so ko te mea tuarua ki te āwhina I ngā wāhine. So we're going to move on to the wāhine pātai now. And the pātai is, will you commit to ensuring a gender lens is applied to policy and decision making, and what will you bring to the role of mayor from your unique perspectives and experiences as wāhine? So I will hand it over to Alan to start us off.
I'm always lucky first. Kia ora. So this is obviously something a bit close to my heart. So I really think that women are not equal in our society, and we still have a lot of sexism happening. So it's really important to me that we try and redress that in everything that we do. We know, for instance, that women's wages over their lifetime are 13% or more different from men, and particularly for some minority and other women that it can be way worse than that. So it's really important that I think that we should perhaps go the other way and do more for women in public life. So I really think we do need to have a gender lens over the spending of Wellington City Council, because I've identified things which I think are unequal. So the three areas that I focused on, I think they would all improve the lot of women. So quality housing is really important, both for renting and for owning. There's a lot of women who get to retirement age who don't own their own home. And so the insecurity of tenure for rentals is really a concern, particularly when every year the flipping rent goes up. So we need to, I think the council should be supporting the Healthy Homes Standard by doing some inspections. It's really strong on that. And over the long term, in the future, we're going to have to find a way that renting is a viable option instead of owning houses. Owning houses, I know a lot of women who've moved into apartments in the inner city, but there's the whole business of earthquake strengthening and insurance has made that a really insecure and a bit of a trap. So there's quite a lot to be done. Also in the district plan, we need to make sure that the quality elements for housing are included, particularly for accessibility. You don't want to be on 3 skinny levels of one of the new housing when you're older, or when you've got kids. You don't want to be running up and down steps all the time. It's kind of obvious. So that's the housing, briefly. So then I looked at about green space. So apart from stormwater management, we need to have more and varied green space, more green space for the inner city, but more varied green space, because I've identified that there are gaps in who our park system is designed for. We really need to have parks for girls. We really need to have more parks for teenagers. We really, really need to have more parks in every suburb for disabled kids. And we especially need to have at least one park in Wellington for people with cognitive impairments like dementia, so that all of those groups can be physically active outside and have a happy time, feeling safe and comfortable in that environment. And we don't have that at the moment. I can go into that a lot. I can talk about all of this stuff a lot, sorry. So I'm really trying to stick to my notes because I'll just ramble on. The other thing that we really need to focus on is transport. Now we know that women travel in a different way to those men. And so generally women will do a lot more in any journey than any man. Let's just be really general. But so when women go out, they will go shopping, they will drop the kids, they will pick up their nana, take her shopping, they will go to work, they will come back, they'll do a whole lot of journeys. And we know that women like to use every mode that there is. They like to walk. Oops, time's up. They like to go on the bus. And so the more that we can support, particularly our strengths of public transport and walking, then we're going to really benefit women. And I'll just stop now because somebody else wants to go.
Oh, I'm so passionate about this, and this is why I'm standing. Politics, and that's local body and government, is not safe for women, let alone women of colour. So it's no wonder that policies aren't designed for us. And that this is something that really, lights some fire in my body, because it is unfair and it's not equal. So some of the things that I want to do to address that, it is becoming mayor, but also we need to create high representation of women on our council and in government. We need to develop a safer environment. So what I want to do is lead a review into bullying, sexism and harassment, so that we can improve the culture within politics in general. Then following that, it's how do we create a successful pathway for women to get into council. So I think local body New Zealand ought to be creating training programs so that we feel informed and safe before we stand, because standing for council and for these positions is so incredibly important, but we don't feel safe. So until women do feel safe, on our advisory groups that report back to council, I want to ensure at least 50% of female representation to ensure that they're inputting into policy that feedback to our council. An example of how I kind of saw that happening, so that's basically my policy team at the moment. We're helping me get it onto council. So we created a safe and supported community policy with this Wāhine lens in mind. And this is things like creating a safer city, so support safety through better street design that promotes community connection, public spaces, street lighting, emergency call boxes, and transforming back alleys into vibrant laneways so that we feel safe walking through them. Funding community organisations dedicated to alcohol harm, drug harm reduction and mental health. A lot of our whānau are on the streets sleeping rough, and that includes our women. So we need to help get them off by providing wraparound services along with a warm home. And that also includes providing a safe, supervised environment for those who might be experiencing overdoses. Look, some people are addicted, we need to help them, no judgments. And providing funding and training for community safety ambassadors to support street safety and provide connections through other services so that they all were working towards the same sort of thing: a safer city, safer council, safer government. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe. Ka whiua te rākau kia ura.
Ni hao. I'm going to just go to what I think is at the heart of what I'm on about as Māori and Pacifica. For us, I'm so passionate about Wāhine Māori, Wāhine Pacifica or Wāhine. We're such a diverse community in Porirua. It's essential actually that we have a look at racism as well as the gender issue. Neither one of them actually go above the other or below the other. We come holistically together. So when I talked about the annual plan and I talked about transparency, we need to make sure it's written in there that when we have our youth council meetings, that we have voices of young kōtiro mā and young women in there too, of an Indigenous and also other diverse disability, whatever background. I think at the moment, very much what has been mentioned by Torian and also my other colleague over here in the candidacy race, I would agree with as well. But specific things I'm thinking of also too is to actually look at ways in which we can ensure that multi-generational trauma for Indigenous is actually addressed, that youth are able to talk about mental health issues which impact upon them, that they're able to talk about the diverse languages that they may not be able to speak and what that does to their identity, that they're able to talk about and use their voice and act on their identity through saying, this works for us. We want more street names in our language around the Porirua community, not just Pacifica and Māori. We want them in Arabic. We want them in Chinese. We need to have those conversations, those hard conversations. And we need to also ensure at the same time as well too that when that is actually happening, we remember our whānau and that holistic paradigm, that when we're looking at our girls in education, we're looking at our women and also the role models that are out there, myself as mayor, we're looking at also what that means, what that looks like within the total whānau. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe. Kei a koe tapu.
Kia ora koutou. So if I was to be elected as Mayor of Porirua, as a strong independent woman, I would want to start seeing a lot more sanitary products available to all girls, starting from primary school all the way through to even tertiary and university. We all know that it's an added cost now, and it's not going to get any cheaper. And having just things like sanitary products available in the bathrooms is going to take a lot of pressure off our young people, and especially our students that are already struggling right now. I'd also want to be supportive of, have a supportive culture in general for our young wāhine, going into any leadership roles, whether it's student council or being a leader at work. So we need to make sure we've got a supportive culture of our young women. I honestly believe that we can do it all as women. We need to really look at nurturing our own strengths and searching for those strengths in each other and encouraging each other to keep pushing and to keep thriving. When I worked as a union delegate with the PSA union, I did experience some gender inequalities in regards to the pay gap. I had when I was working at MSD, there were other guys coming in and getting paid $12,000 more than me, and we were doing exactly the same work, and that kind of jump-started my journey into getting into union and really fighting for rights of women, that fight is being fought today, and I commend the people that are still fighting a good fight to bridge that gender pay gap. I also want to encourage more women to get into governance boards. I went to a governance workshop with Karen Thangi and Millie Wend it. And they're both pioneers in my mind of women that try and encourage people to understand what your role is in a governance role and how to add more value to your community. So I want to follow in their footsteps as well. My auntie Jasmine Underhill was also one of the first Polynesian deputy mayors in all of New Zealand, and she's another person that I look up to and want to follow her footsteps. So we've got some beautiful women out there overseas. Kamala Harris, one of my favourite quotes from her is, "I eat nose for breakfast." And when I'm having a really bad day, I just think of that, and that literally makes me get out of bed and face the nose with a giant grin. And I hope that you guys, take that with you today. I think strengthening our wāhine, nurturing our own personal strengths, being nurturers. Getting more women on governance boards would be amazing. Thank you very much.
Ngā mihi kia tātou ki tēnā kōrero e hāpaitia i ngā wāhine katoa o Porirua ki te whanganui ātara rānei. So we do have a couple questions from the floor that relate to the safety of wāhine in our respective rohe. So like before, I'm just going to read out the pātai, and each panelist will get 60 seconds to respond. Kei te pai. All right, so ko te mea tuatahi, sexual violence is pervasive across all sectors of our community, both within whānau and within wider society, and disproportionately affects wahine. How would you commit to the prevention of sexual violence and commit to improving access to sexual violence support services? So we will huri back to Alan to start us off.
Gosh, I get all the good ones first. So, yes, sexual violence is definitely a significant issue in New Zealand. It's a shameful thing that we have to even say that in a way. But then I think about, well, okay, so I'm standing for local council. So what can a city council do to improve that situation for whoever it is that's being affected by family violence, because it affects kids and it affects a whole lot of other people as well, doesn't it? So, then I come back to housing. Having secure housing is such an important thing. If I know that some people, for instance, won't leave a situation because they've got nowhere else to go. I know that there's 1,000 people on the highest needs level of the housing register that are waiting to go somewhere, and maybe some of those people are affected by that. So the more that we can do to provide good housing, good quality housing, long-term housing for people, the better. And that includes public housing support, which Wellington City Council is really good at, but needs to be better.
Tori.
So I have a background working for the Minister for the Prevention of Family and Sexual Violence, so this is also very dear to my heart. I'm a volunteer for Women's Refuge as well as Wellington Rape Crisis. I've been meeting with all of them over the last few months to figure out how best can local government impact the safety of our whānau. And one is we need to ensure, and this is told to me by Wellington Rape Crisis, for example, is just ensuring that we can provide council facilities and funding to ensure that they actually have a safe space to be, to allow survivors and victims to be able to go. And then it just kind of comes back to that more holistic issue. As Alan has said, people need access to homes, warm, dry homes, mental health support, and that alcohol harm reduction. But as I'm told by these 3 experts in the field, it's just the funding to ensure that they can keep going. The government has released a strategy around this. It just needs to remain at the top. It needs to be, we need a cabinet minister to be leading that next time, and I hope that Marama Davidson eventually ends up around the cabinet table to lead this really important mahi.
Nā koe, kei a koe ura.
Kia ora, no. Multi-generational trauma. It can be through rape, it can be through sexual abuse, it can be through poverty, it can be through colonisation, it can be through many different pathways and avenues. I'm passionate about this area and have done and had conversations with the Rape Crisis Centre also through Women's Refuge as well too. And it's about a shift in mindset. Now, if we as a council can put out brochures in toilets, wherever, to encourage particular so-called acceptable things in society, then why can't we put them out? We don't support rape, we don't support this, we don't support that. I think even if we haven't got funding, although it would be actually advantageous to have more money, we could actually do things to make it visible for those young girls who are going into the toilets and thinking, oh my gosh, having a good old cry maybe at lunchtime somewhere about something that's happened, which has been a sexually abusive situation. So let's just lead the way through ensuring that we make it visible and we say no, it's not okay. Kia ora.
Tapu.
Yes, kia ora. In regards to sexual violence, I believe that Wellington already has the Porirua promise, where you can go into a bar and signal and order a special drink and you'll get help. I don't know why we don't have that in Porirua, and if I'm elected as mayor, I'd love to have that same thing happening in all of the bars in Porirua as well. So I totoko Wellington for having that and having the initiative, and all the businesses that jumped on board with that. I think it's really important, and why not even have it in cafes and sports clubs where it might happen, who knows. But I'd love to have that all over Porirua. Obviously the Porirua promise. could be. I also think we should have more mobile sexual health clinics in each pocket of Porirua, so that women, if you don't know your body, how can you look after it? And so if you're going to sexual health clinics and having these one-on-ones with a health nurse, you respect your body more, and if you respect your body more, you're not going to put yourself in situations where it might get hurt. We also need to educate our women. Don't go at night time. Don't go on Tinder. Tinder's terrible. And obviously self-defence classes. We need to keep ourselves safe and take responsibility ourselves, and self-defence is number one. Thank you.
Do any other panellists have anything else to add on that part?
Kia ora. Look, I come from an education background with over 30 years experience, and one thing that I've found myself personally and within my whānau and within the different generations is we have to be informed. And my mother taught me how to look after myself as her mother taught her how to look after herself, and the generation before that. And so it's about education, it's about women talking, having conversations, having those safe spaces at school and also out in the community, and finding innovative ways, getting those young women onto the council at Porirua and hearing what works for them when we have our youth-sponsored meetings. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Oh, sorry, and one more. Ensuring that we also too have partnerships as well with the police, the local police, and have conversations with people who are the key organisations supporting people who have experienced abuse, sexual abuse. Kia ora.
Could I just add a little comment to that?
Alan first.
So thanks. So that's one of the reasons that I particularly wanted to have park space for girls, because that says that we value girls and their own space to feel safe and comfortable and to be physically active, because it's pretty much as soon as you hit puberty, the rate of girls doing physical activity drops right off, and one of the reasons is that they don't feel comfortable out in public space. It's public space, it should be safe for everybody. And also, I think Tori touched on it before about designing our public spaces in the city to be safe for everybody, so that everybody can feel comfortable out there. It's not, we really need to say that strongly as a city. This city is for everybody, it's inclusive, it's diverse, and you should feel good in it in the public space.
I think we need to educate our men.
Yep.
As simple as that.
You're not the problem.
And I will add to that, so our wonderful Minister Davidson, so this is why, and she got a lot of flack for this, she engaged with some of our gangs, right, which included some of our men, and because they were the first to acknowledge that they were committing violence against women. So she was like, I'm going to sit down with you and find out what is causing this. Why are you hurting our wahine? And look, if that's one way to open the dialogue, to get them to stop, I'm all for it, because something needs to change, but it needs to change with men.
So another partai along a similar vein, but focused on public transport. So if elected, would you try and make public transport and footpaths safer for women to use? And if so, how? Noting the personal safety risks women face in travelling on and waiting for public transport, as well as walking alone at night time. So, ka huri kia Alan.
Kia ora. So this is one of my real hot topics, so please stop me because I'll keep going. So there's a real issue for women, particularly at night, isn't there? That somebody asked me the other day, there's a question about travelling around at night, and I said, I don't feel bad walking around the inner city, but then I think to myself afterwards, I thought, but I'm always really careful who's around me, what they're doing, how close they are to me, where my bag is. There's a whole range of things that you just take as for normal when you're out and about. So, you know, I feel comfortable, but I do all this other stuff around it. So, so there's lots of things about, if you go through town at night at the moment, it's dark, all these empty shops, the footpaths are dark, and it just creeps me out a little bit. So there's a lot we can do for lighting, there's a lot we can do, we're just talking about designing safer spaces. So, but that's a specific issue for nighttime, but just being safe on public transport and footpaths in particular, they don't meet a really good standard at the moment. The bus stops don't integrate with footpaths very well. One of the key safety issues in transport is falling over, which has a significant impact, particularly on older people, because young people will fall down and bounce back up. But older people, it's really important that we provide a really good quality infrastructure to make those things work really well, which should help at night time as well. Sorry, I stopped you.
Tori.
So again, it comes down to redesigning our streets so that they're safer, a lot more lighting, community safety ambassadors, those emergency boxes. And I think when it comes to public transport, it is things like platforms, light rail that are better for safety and accessibility. But what I'd like to see is working conditions for bus drivers. We need to increase their salaries and perhaps also empower them too to be able to know when to step in. So providing that really effective training like we do with bouncers in a way, and recognising that a bus driver, their job is hard enough as it is. They deserve an increase. If we add this safety training on top, another increase, and I think it can really play a big part and make us feel safer.
Ura.
Yeah, kia ora. Bruce Perry, in his book, The Boy Who Was Raised by a Dog, one of the key points that he puts across is rather than actually having a look at the big issue and problem as being on the individual, the person who is doing the harm, you could ask what happened to you. In doing so, you can unpack what are the things that actually occurred to bring that person to that particular place where that particular action occurred. I agree with the others here on the panel that we need to look at infrastructure as well too. We need to look at better lighting, better ways to actually ensure that we can walk on the streets without actually having these things happen to us. I think also too that it's important that we have a shift in mindset. We work with mana whenua, we work with co-governance and look at those issues that actually will ensure that women are safer at all times, not just at night, during the day as well too, because that can be the most trickiest time as well. Kia ora.
Tapu.
Kia ora. I don't know if I can beat anything Tori just said, but I absolutely love her ideas about the bus drivers getting paid more to look after our women. I think it's great. I also think we should have on-demand transport where, obviously if we're travelling at night time, I think the bus services are reduced, and we should have on-demand transport in Porirua. It's already happening in Tawa, and we need to have it happening in Porirua as well, especially for our elderly who don't have anyone to drive them around during the day while their kids are at work. So yeah, definitely need some more on-demand transport, obviously some at night time better lighting, and I actually think maybe having some phone charge units near bus stops where if they're waiting for their bus they can charge their phone and then give their friend a phone call.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on to our last kind of kaupapa for tonight's kōrero, which is Te Tiriti or Waitangi. So it's quite a big kaupapa, and I have heard it infused throughout the kōrero tonight, so hopefully we can flesh out some more of that whakaaro. So the pātai is, what is your commitment to Te Tiriti or Waitangi, and what do you think should be the commitment from local government? So kei a koe, Alan.
Kia ora. So thanks for a great question. So I thought it quite hard about how to respond to it, and I'm not sure I have the perfect answer here, but this is kind of my response. Partly because I feel like I'm on a journey learning more about Te Tiriti myself, particularly when I was a kid. I can't remember the first time I even heard about the Treaty of Waitangi. But I definitely remember in the 1970s that, with the passing of the Treaty of Waitangi Act and the Waitangi Tribunal being set up and the petition for Te Reo, it started to kind of percolate up. So I'm on my own path in this regard, and so that's really cool. But from my point of view, I see the treaty as the foundation document for New Zealand, and so it's really important that we all get to understand it more. And I'm really encouraged, actually, that about the development that's happened over my lifetime and about where things are going. For instance, I know that when I first started working for central government, they talked about the Tiriti relationship as a Crown central government kind of thing, but now it's widened a lot more into local government as well, and I'm really encouraged that this is what's happened, because it's exciting, and I think New Zealand's fantastic. You know, Aotearoa is a great place to be on this journey, and people are at all different stages, aren't they? So I think it's really cool. That's my general kind of understanding of where I'm coming from. But as a you know, wanting to be elected as a mayor for a city council, the things that I think that we need to focus on, Wellington, one of the things I'm excited about is for the first time ever after this election we'll have a Māori ward, and you know, who knows how that exactly plays out. So from my point of view, I'd really like to make sure that gets embedded really well, and that at the end of 3 years everybody goes, yay, that was a really good thing, that's really added value to our city, because I think that would make it, then there will be a really successful model for how we can make our treaty obligations work well for Wellington. And we've got 3 great candidates for Māori ward, by the way. So, and then the other thing that I think that we need to do is we've got our district plan going through its process at the moment, and I think we need to embed some really cool Tiriti elements into that, and I will take advice on how that would work. But I know there's design guides that include elements all through them. I'd like to see some of those things into the body of the document of the district plan more. It's really important. What else? Just quickly. And so I really like the idea of papa kaianga as well. I think that's another option for providing really good secure housing for people, and so that needs to be in the district plan. We also need the whole 15-minute neighbourhood idea to be in the plan as well, so that people can live locally and have all the things they need for their everyday in that area, which I think will help everybody. I've got a few more things, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Kōrero mai, a story.
For me, this is actually quite simple, and I'll probably keep mine quite short. It's the council must honour Te Tiriti. We must have co-governance. This is crucial for Wellington moving forward. I actually agree with Ellen that there needs to be a much bigger education piece for everyone in our city to really understand, so people can totally get that mana whenua, you know, the kaitiaki, they're here to look after our land, or their land, and make it accessible and beautiful for all of us. So they've, you know, we must have a combined vision here, which will be a climate resilient future. The council recently signed an agreement with mana whenua to really kind of put that agreement, make it a concrete thing, and I hugely support that. So I'm committing to continuing that agreement and deepening our relationship with mana whenua. Hugely supportive of Māori wards. I think it's wonderful, and I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out with council. But for me, this is also why I think Wāhine Māori should lead. I think this is the time, and we're going to see some really exciting things from our council if that comes through. If not, look, there are things in place that council have done, and I congratulate them for doing that.
Ura.
Look, I'll keep it pretty simple as well too. If we're going to honour the Treaty of Waitangi, let's all start talking te reo Māori. Don't expect you to be fluent straight away, but I do expect those who are working with me to make an effort to learn te reo. I think also too that we need to look at what's happening in the wānangas to ensure, because we all know it's hard to get on a te reo Māori course than one of the wānangas because they're free. So we need to ensure that there's more funding in Porirua area, there's more actually availability for people to learn te reo Māori at all ages, not just in the primary schools, secondary schools, but also as adults as well too. I think also too with that will come the knowledge about the protection of historical places, of wahi tapu, and the significance of that to mana whenua, and the impact of that then upon water, whenua, and tangata. He hata mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata. Nō reira, kia ora rā.
Tapu.
Kia ora. So in regards to the Tiriti, I actually believe it should already be ratified into New Zealand legislation. It's been implied in a lot of our legislation and not yet ratified, and like Tori said, now's the time for that to happen, and I'm all for it. So the three principles of partnership, participation, protection are all principles that I'm going to have in all my policies. Like I said, I already believe it needs to be ratified already. In regards to partnership, I want to have better partnerships with mana whenua, which is the Ngāti Toa iwi in Porirua, also community leaders, the police, and also technology companies. I want to take Porirua into the future, and you know, they're looking things at things like e-games, and getting our kids into writing ebooks. I think that should be a thing already. Our kids should be writing ebooks already. They've got amazing stories. They really do art at school, and amazing art at that. And usually they just get thrown into a backpack and then shoved behind a cupboard. But it should be, yeah, we should be creating NFTs with those things, and there is monetary gain behind it, and I don't see why we don't take advantage of that. So I would be looking at partnering with technological companies to make that happen, and obviously lift the incomes of our own local families, participation. We need more youth. We need to hear more from our youth. Right now, yeah, there are a lot of ageist in our community, and we need to shut that down and say, hey, everybody's voice is valid, including our young. And it needs to start from school council level, primary school level, and all the way up. So including encouraging our youth to participate, including our rainbow community. You know, they're a minority, and everybody's voices, I believe, are important and should be raised and represented at any table that they're at. Protection, obviously, our water and our wāhine. So I think, yeah, those are all things that are already a given, and why not? Let's ratify the Te Tiriti 2022. Me take.
Ia tu kia koutou e whakapainga i tō tātou whenua hoki mai te whenua Māori. I have another pārtai for the panel, and we'll just run it the same again, so 60 seconds to answer. And the pārtai is, what are the three articles of Te Tiriti or Waitangi, and what do they mean to you? So, ka huri kia Alan, aroha mai.
This is the question that everybody gets wrong, isn't it? So I can't say the words, but first of all people have the rights as citizens of New Zealand. So that's a participation one, isn't it? And then, Māori has sovereignty, and then I'm going to, because this is, I'm just running this thing in my head that says nobody ever remembers the third one, and so now I can't. So what was the other part of that question? Because I've just fluffed it. Yeah.
And what do the articles mean to you?
So I think it means that everybody in New Zealand has a basis for being here, and how we interact with each other, and I think that's really important. I think it's a great basis. It's kind of out there. So people who come from this place, the tangata whenua, the mana whenua, and people. I'm not even going to get and us visitors. Tauiwi, yeah. So I think the treaty provides the basis for all of that.
Oh, well, I cheated because I've had it up for ages. So, I want to fully acknowledge it's really hard. And like at Parliament, whenever we go to Waitangi, none of the politicians get it right. So I just want to fully acknowledge that. But should I?
For the benefit of everyone in the room.
the Chiefs of the Confederation, or do you want to have a... What do you think?
Ka tīmatau, tēnei teime. Okay, first and foremost, I don't recognise it as such in the way that we're talking about it today. In 1839, some of my tūpuna were talking about he whakaputanga, the Declaration of Independence. One of my tūpuna did something outrageous because they told a fib when it came to the Treaty of Waitangi. They promised in the Declaration of Independence one thing, when it came to the treaty, something different happened. So we ask these questions why? We are Māori here, the descendants of people who fought to actually stop these people coming into this whenua tau iwi. So please don't grill us. We come from that heritage. We know what we've been through. We have gone through multi-generational trauma. If you want to ask us about the treaty, you ask us about what our parents did cleaning these buildings around here to ensure we got a good education so we could come here today. And I'm not really trying to make this a situation which is tense, but I'm saying to you, let's go past asking those questions. What do you understand about the treaty? I think we've seen enough about that. Let's talk about the Declaration of Independence and what happened before the treaty. And let's talk about the wonderful things that are happening now up at Waitangi. Let's talk about 1970s March on Parliament, Witihe Māori. Let's talk about those people who took the petition there for Te Reo Māori. Let's talk about the opportunities today to sit here as Māori women. If you ask me about the treaty, I answer it this way. Nō reira, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kei a koe?
Well, no, it's the same sort of thing. I find it quite a traumatic sort of
Ai, ka pai.
response. You know, it's, and I tend to box this in with the fact that I can speak very little te reo Māori. You know, it's really hard as a wahine Māori being up here, putting ourselves forward for these big roles and being grilled on certain issues that has been ripped from us through education. And then when it gets put on us like this, I find it traumatic, to be honest.
Kia ora.
Good answer.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge your mana and the past trauma from Te Tiriti and everything that happened there. So I already mentioned what my connection is to those three principles. I actually wasn't going to cheat and look through the books and just go off my own personal knowledge and what I remember is a right of first refusal when it comes to sale of land and then protection of taonga or fauna. And to me that means the trees and the birds. And working in participation being working together with the Crown. Those are my three understandings of the principles off the top of my head. But yeah, kia ora.
But I really appreciate that you've actually opened this kōrero for us to be able to express ourselves this way, because it's probably something that's been sitting in my, sitting here, and I haven't been able to express that discomfort. So actually, while I've said the things that I've said, and I tautoko what you said as well, I actually appreciate that opportunity, because it's very real.
Kia ora.
My daughter said to me, Mum, why aren't you talking about Cook Island, Māori? And I said, because of this. It's the first time that we have two Cook Island Māori women who are standing for Mayor of Porirua, who are Pacifica. Next, because it's the first time you have someone who is Cook Island Māori, Ngāti Mani o Putu with Ngāti Toa affiliations, standing for Mayor of Porirua. And secondly, also, when I was brought up with the reos that I was brought up with, I was told at primary school, my parents were told, don't speak the reo to her, she'll never get to university. And even though we used to laugh at my father, because he would say, go get that thing over there, whatever the son done. What did you say? Even though he couldn't speak English that correctly, I thank God for that, because that helped to retain our language and culture. For those of you who are Indigenous women here, I'm sure we could share many questions, how we can come back educated, but then our parents speak in that half English, half Indigenous language. So, at the same time when it was hitting New Zealand with colonisation, it was hitting the Cook Islands. Our Queen Makia signed the declaration of, it was a declaration similar to what happened here in New Zealand for a protectorate. From that time, Māori, who experienced here the eradication, really, it was like a genocide of the reo, we experienced in the Cook Islands. To this very day, out of all the Pacifica groups, Cook Island Māori have the lowest lowest fluency of people speaking Te Reo Māori. In the outer islands, it's fine. I'm bringing this up because when we talk about Māori, we're talking about a migration of people. We're talking about Māori in Easter Island, we're talking about Māori in Hawaii, we're talking about Māori in Tahiti, and we are here with mana whenua. So I go back to co-governance and supporting mana whenua. Kia ora.
Kia tū kia koutou I whakautu I tēnei pātai. I think we've reached sort of the end of our 3 pātai, Wai, Wāhine and Te Tiriti, so we're going to open it up to questions from the floor. And I think we've kind of covered most of the pātai throughout our kōrero, which has been awesome. But we do have one final pātai here in front of me. But if you guys want to put up any pātai to our helpers just around the corners, and we will endeavour to get those answered, noting that it is 7:22. All right, so we've got one pātai here, 60 seconds each. Can you discuss your plans to tackle homelessness, in particular discussing how homelessness is different for Wāhine? So, does anyone want to volunteer to go first? We give Alan a little break.
I'll go first. Kia ora. Okay.
Thank you.
I think it was mentioned by Ellen, if I may, Ellen, when she said she wanted separate parks for girls, and she explained why. I think if we have a look in mental health and multi-generational trauma, and even the psychiatric ward up there at Wellington Hospital, Ward 28, I don't know whether it's changed, but I heard at one stage girls and men were put together. And men at Porirua Hospital, that used to be the case as well too. And that's where a number of things that we're talking about, abuse actually can occur. We need to have safe spaces for women. We need to also ensure at the same time also too that along with safety we have a wraparound service, we have whānau to actually be there for women. Not necessarily biological whānau, but it is a whānau actually approach. Can you just repeat that one more time? Just one more time. I just want to make sure I get
Can
the
you
last
discuss
one
your
right.
plans to tackle homelessness, in particular discussing how homelessness is different for Wāhine?
It's different for Wāhine because of who we are as Wāhine, and because of the vulnerabilities we can have. And the fact also too that in Porirua we have a number of homeless women on the streets outside North City, also to the bakery. We need to have safe spaces for them that are actually going to be spaces where they can be women and they can be protected by other women.
Ka pai.
Kia ora.
Tapu?
I can have a go, yeah. So yeah, in regards to homelessness and the difference for Wāhine, I think the most obvious one is homeless Wāhine have sanitary needs, and how are they going to access these things? So we need to address that issue. And also, just being a Wāhine on your own is unsafe. So for me, how I would address homelessness is I actually favour the containership home options because one, they're cheap, they're affordable, they're easy to kit out and install windows, and you can pop them into front yards and backyards of their close families or anyone that they're close to, or create a village of containerships of just purely women. So it's an option, I think. I mean, we don't want anyone on the streets, and containership homes, I think, is the answer for now. Thank you.
Alan?
Here we go. So cool, right? So I think for me, homelessness for women means that we don't see women being homeless as much as we see men, particularly on people who lie on the footpath and things like that. Quite often it's men. So I think that the homelessness for women has been kind of hidden, and I think women try to hide their homelessness quite a lot as well. They sleep in cars, probably. I mean, who knows, but probably more. And they try and become invisible, I guess, quite because it's safer for women. So, and particularly some older women, I think we forget about the older women. When you hit retirement and you don't have your own home, you're in quite big. You've got a lot of issues. And so I work in a transitional facility for women who are on low incomes, that they can come and stay there, and then they get a kind of wraparound help to either find work or find other more permanent accommodation. But as we know, there's a real lack of public housing for women, and particularly suitable housing maybe for older people, or for people with solo parents with kids or something. You know, it's quite tricky. So I really support the public housing that Wellington City Council can provide, and hopefully the government will ramp up their building of public housing more. But it's not an easy thing. So just supporting the efforts that are going on at the moment. Places like DCM do a really great job. We've traditionally provided like night shelters for men, but even that's closed now. That's going through a different transition place, but we never really provided the same kind of service for women. So maybe finding out more about what's happening there would be really useful for the council as well.
Oh, look, not much more to add to what's already been said, especially with what Ellen has outlined. I think it's totally true. It's a hidden issue. One of the solutions is to increase our social housing, and we can do that through accelerating or utilising Let's Get Willie Moving and utilising the Urban Development Act to increase our housing significantly from the waterfront to the hospital, and at least 30% of that needs to be public housing. And I agree with having, separate situations for our women and ensuring that they have access to those wraparound services, including things like Wellington Rat Crisis and other needs that they might have.
So I think we're going to end it here, but I did want to just read out a comment that was posted in our Zoom chat, which said, "I want to commend the candidates for the respect and support they've shown toward each other during this kōrero on very tough issues." So, ngā mihi nui. So thank you again to our panel, Tori, Alan, Tapu and Ura, for sharing your whakaaro and also actually just running for local government. It's awesome to hear from a panel of wāhine, as you said earlier, in politics, who are putting themselves out there for what they believe in. So again, me mihi atu kia koutou. Ko te tūmanako kua pai mā takitaki tō tātou hui, ko te taki o ngā wāhine katoa i te kōrero rā. Kara whiua te pōti koutou, go out and vote this election, please. Nō reira, before we wrap up, I believe our host organisations would just like to take a moment to tell you a bit about what they do and how you can join them. So can I invite Sarah up for Zonta?
Hi everyone, for people who don't know me, my name is Sarah Barclay and I'm a proud member of the Zonta Club of Wellington. So it's great to see some of my fellow club members here today, and also, so Zonta is a series of clubs all around the world. We also have clubs within New Zealand, so we've got some club members from the Zonta Club of Mana, so up in Porirua. So it's really great to see you here as well. So what I'll do is I'll read out like Zonta's vision and mission, because it really emphasises what we stand for. So Zonta International envisages a world in which women's rights are recognised as human rights and every woman is able to fulfil her potential. In such a world, I should know this off by heart, I say it a lot. In such a world, women have access to all resources and are represented in decision-making positions on an equal basis with men. In such a world, no woman lives in fear of violence. So I think a lot of what the panellists said today just aligns so strongly with Zonta's values. Yes, and so as well as working with NCW and Graduate Women, the Zonta Club of Wellington, we organise things like awards for recognising women who have PhDs in science. So that's an award we had recently, and last week we did some work in terms of financial literacy for women. So there's a lot of things that the Zonta Club does. So if you're interested in any sort of feminist issues, our Zonta Club, either in Wellington or the one up in Mana, we're involved in all sorts of things. So at a national level, we work together for grandparents raising grandchildren, and then at a local level, our club supports Shakti. So maybe the members of Zonta, if you just want to raise your hand and just wave to people. So if anyone here is not in Zonta and you'd like to have a chat to other Zonta members, I know they'd be keen to have a chat. And also I should say a big thanks to Claire and Amy and Alicia. Like, you guys have been amazing to work with. Like, all really fascinating, interesting people. So with we've all got different backgrounds, so I won't talk about ourselves, but you guys have been really great to work with. So yeah, thanks for working with me and pulling this together. I've just got a gift from, you've got roses to all, represent the different organisations. So this is the Zonta Yellow Rose. This is you.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Goes with your
Yeah.
Can you talk about Otis and Cara? The one for Oda?
Oh, so the and the other one is flower from Graduate Woman. That one?
Which one?
Yes. I'll let someone else speak about Graduate Woman.
Okay. Graduate Women Wellington.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to talk about the purple flower, and it's like, sorry, I don't know the history. What's the purple colour?
All right. Kia ora. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosanna, and I'm here to represent Graduate Women. I'm their scholarships officer. So I have a few cheat sheets. Sorry, because I had to have a bit of a history lesson as well on the organization. So in 1918, the International Federation of Graduate Women was founded, and that was a way of preventing another catastrophe, such as World War I. So the aim was to work towards international understanding and foster peace. And since then, it's evolved considerably. So now there are 53 countries with organizations over every major continent. And New Zealand was founded in 1921, so only 3 years after the original organization. Now, there are 4 branches in New Zealand. That's North Shore, Manawatu, Wellington, and Otago. And in 2015, the organization was rebranded as Graduate Women International. And so Graduate Women New Zealand, we are Graduate Women Wellington, et cetera, et cetera. So the main focus of our branch is advocacy and scholarship. So the 2 main things. So advocacy, we work on that by advocating for women's rights and equal pay. So we review all bills that are presented to Parliament that relate to women and education. And then we work with often other organizations to do submissions to the Select Committee to hopefully make changes to those bills to be in better favor for women. Now in scholarship, that's my area, so one of our large purposes is to advocate for further education and career development for women. So every year we give $250,000 in scholarships. So we have everything from girls who are in high school and they're the first member of their family to ever go to university, and we give undergraduate scholarships for that. We give master's scholarships, PhD scholarships, career development scholarships, as well as people who it's their second chance to have education, and we do that in conjunction with New Horizons. So we try our best to extensively support any women who want to further themselves in their career. Now, for us, we fund all of this through, which I'm sure you've all seen, the hiring of grad gowns. So we do the Vic grad gowns, local polytechnics, a lot of high schools, and this is how we come up with our funds to give so much money away in scholarships. So anytime if you're renting grad gowns or you just want them for pretty pictures, that your money is going to a good cause. All right, so our members have been working steadily for the past 101 years to progress women's rights. We've had some quite notable citizens be part of our group, including Dame Margaret Sparrow, Dame Miriam Dell, and Dr. Elizabeth Orr, who's the former Chancellor of Victoria University, who is a lifelong advocate for equal pay for women. Now, the organization, it's not all about work. We do have some play. We generally have a social event every month or two, and we do our best to keep these going even under adverse circumstances. Like during COVID, we had a talk from virologist Susie Wiles, and unfortunately we were all here and she had to zoom in instead of flying because we weren't allowed to fly during that time. We also do other entertaining collaborative events such as these debates or the International Breakfast at Parliament each year. Unfortunately, one of the last ones that I got to attend in person was when Dame Sylvia Cartwright spoke about how even though she was a practicing lawyer, she wasn't allowed to sign her own mortgage documents. You know, so it's just really fun and entertaining event. Now, I know I'm probably speaking, preaching to the choir, and I know that all of you would want to support women's rights and the advancement of women. Unfortunately, we're still a distressingly long way away from equality, and I personally chose Graduate Women because of the emphasis on education. And also because it was probably one of the gentlest volunteer commitments I've ever even heard of. You know, the minimum is a yearly contribution to your subscription, and even if you're overcommitted and have no other time, at least you know your money is going to a good cause. The next step up is to maybe volunteer for a couple-hour block at one of the graduation ceremonies to either give out or collect grad gowns, and then sort of maximum commitment is the once a month being on a committee to help organize things. But it's if you're at all interested in helping to foster the sort of work that we do, I invite you to join. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask myself or Janet, she's president, if you'd like to, yeah. Welcome to come up to us and ask us any questions. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Tēnā koutou, ko Alicia Amohia tōku ingoa. My name is Alicia Amohia. I'm the co-president of the Wellington Branch of the National Council of Women. Look, I won't talk for long. You didn't come here to hear from me, but I will just quickly tell you, National Council of Women is a 125-year-old organisation here in Aotearoa in Wellington. Raise your hand if you're a Wellington Branch member. There's plenty of us here for you to chat to. We love organising events and campaigns that highlight women, advocate for women, and amplify the voices of women. For example, this event here tonight, or we organise balls, quiz nights, fundraisers, and campaigns and rallies, including the Let Us Live rally for a city free from sexual violence, alongside the Wellington Alliance for sexual violence against sexual violence in 2021. So that's a little bit about what we do, but I'm sure that you're welcome to come and chat to us in the networking portion of this after. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our panel. We really appreciate you being here.
Alright, so before I just whakakapi I tō tātou hui, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you wanted to watch the debate again, it's been live streamed to the National Council of Women Facebook page, so make sure that you check that out. And once again, just thank you to all our panellists and all the best for your campaigns. We look forward to seeing you all again, and don't forget to vote. Alright, māku I whakakapi tō tātou hui. Unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma te nākau, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takatu. Koe ara I rongo whakairia aki ki runga, kia tīna. Haumi e hui e. Tai e. O Mārie.